Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here, again another Master Duel video for you all. So, we are coming back to Punk. This time around we're going to be doing Kashtira Punk. I've had a lot of people asking me on stream and in the YouTube comments when I would come back to this deck. So, here we are, coming back to good old Kash Punk. Speaking of streams, by the way, if you did not know, I am streaming regularly on Twitch now. I've been doing it for a couple of weeks, and I definitely plan to continue doing it in the future. So, if you are interested in catching me live, you can check out the link in the description below to go to my Twitch page and give me a follow there. That'll of course notify you whenever I go live. And if you feel so inclined, you can also follow the link over to my Twitter because I do also post my weekly streaming schedule over there. I just pin it right at the top of the profile. So feel free to check out either of those links if you want to catch my streams. And I hope to see you there because I have a lot of fun during those. A lot of people can attest too that have shown up that they are a good time. So in any case, yeah, Kash Punk. So I have definitely been meaning to come back to this deck. I really like it. I just have been busy with like Purrely and streams and just a whole bunch of stuff, right? But we did finally come back to it, and I do think that this probably does end up being the more consistent variant of Punk here. I think the main thing that pushes this a little bit over the Chaos variants is that while the Chaos variants do tend to have a bit of a higher ceiling if they get to pop off, right, and just like go way off, the Kash Punk has a more consistent floor where it's not hard to end on like the Amazing Dragon setup plus a Baronne de Fleur, and that ends up often being enough to take games, right? So the ratios here I think are pretty similar to what we were doing before in the main deck. In the extra deck, you'll probably notice that I now have 2 copies of Amazing Dragon and 2 copies of Rising Carp. So the Punk extra deck tends to be pretty wide open, and in that regard, you can fit additional copies of the cards pretty easily if you've got them. To be fair, the second Rising Carp probably isn't necessary right now. I think it becomes more necessary when Kashtira becomes better, because if you only play 1 Rising Carp and Unicorn snipes this, then it becomes, you know, nigh impossible to do your combo lines. As it stands right now, I think in, you know, the current state, I should probably be playing a second Sharakusai if I'm going to play a second Rising Carp, which actually isn't a bad idea. Sharakusai is really, really good. I definitely wouldn't mind seeing it a little bit more often. So a second Sharakusai might actually not be a bad call, especially, again, if we're playing the 2 Rising Carp. I think it tends to be pretty good. So the second Amazing Dragon definitely comes up more often, though, and it's pretty 50-50, actually, if you look at Punk builds that have done well on ladder or, you know, done well in tournaments, whether they play 1 or 2 Amazing Dragon. The benefit to playing a second Amazing Dragon is that there are times where you can actually summon the Amazing Dragon on your turn 1 and then use it to bring back like your Punk Tuner, for example. If you can get another level 8 monster on the field, that'll offer you another body, and you can still go into the Amazing Dragon during your opponent's turn, the second one there. So it actually does behoove you beyond just, you know, Kashtira cards to actually play the second Amazing Dragon. The second Rising Carp may be a little bit less so. But again, once Kashtira has become big, if you still want to play Punk decks, which I definitely will, it'll be definitely really good to have the second Rising Carp. Because again, the extra deck is so wide open for Punks. Like, there's so little you actually need to play the Punk engine, right? The only things you really need are like, you know, a level 8, often Jam Dragon Drive, but sometimes Chaos Ruler as well. The Baronne is always good to have. You don't need the Chengying. You need 1 Amazing Dragon, 1 Rising Carp, and Pep. And, like, you know, that's pretty much all that's required. So, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards is all you need to do your most frequent plays. You know, then, of course, it's good to have Zeus and another 8 and another 10, so on and so forth. But, you know, even beyond that, like, I'm playing a bunch of stuff I, like, never summon here, like the rank 7s. Like, we've got the Shangri-Era and Diablosis in case they come up, and as well as the Big Eye. But the Era and the Diablosis, I've never summoned these in this variant. I think maybe I've summoned 1 Big Eye, but it's pretty rare to have 2 7s. If you're not also playing, like, Ascendant Thunder or Instant, Instant Neospace? Which is, you know, those are definitely not bad cards to have at all. Instant Contact, that's the card I was thinking of. It's definitely not bad to have those cards at all, but I don't think they're required by any means. So yeah, I think that what we have here is generally good enough, and even if that means that we're not summoning, you know, that many rank 7s, I think that's fine. I don't think the deck needs to be able to do that necessarily in order to win. But, like, Like the Dragite, like the extra 8, I've never summoned this. I've never had to. That never really comes up. I have thought about putting in Downward Magician, because like, the thing about Fortune Tune, right? Fortune Tune is our Zeus pilot for this deck, and the reason I don't play Downward right now is because in order to survive battle, you know, the Fortune Tune needs to detach a material. So like, if it runs into an attack mode monster and it detaches a material, then it doesn't really do any good to throw a Downward on, because then your Zeus will only be 3 materials. But to be fair, if this runs into a defense mode monster, then it could matter. So I think honestly, probably the call here for the time being until, what is it, the rise of the new Kashtira support, the rise of a Rise Heart, so to speak. It's probably a good call to take out the second Rising Carp and just play a Downward instead. But again, in the future, I think it'll be nice to have that second Rising Carp. So, alright, that's going to go ahead and I think do it for everything I wanted to talk about the list itself. Let's go ahead and now break it down card by card and then look at some gameplay. So, we're on 3 Maxx, 1 Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, 3 Ash Blossom and a Joyous Spring, 1 Ukiyoe Punk Sharakusai, 1 Gagaku Wa Gon, 1 Joruri Punk Madam Spider, 3 No-Punk Amin, 2 No-Punk Deer Note, 2 Kashtira Fenrir, 3 Kashtira Unicorn, 3 No-Punk Foxy Tune, 3 No-Punk Ogre Dance, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 2 Triple Tactics Talent, 1 Punk Jam Extreme Session, 1 Kashtira Birth, 2 Emergency Teleport, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 3 Infinite Impermanence, 1 Joruri Punk Dangerous Gabu, 1 Yu-Gi-Oh! Punk Rising Carp, 1 Adamancipator Risen Dragite, 1 Punk Jam Dragon Drive, 1 Baronne de Fleur, 1 Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Chengying, 2 Ukiyoe Punk Amazing Dragon, 1 Psychic and Punisher, 1 number 49 Fortune Tune, 1 Downward Magician, 1 number 11 Big Eye, 1 number 89 Diablosis the Mind Hacker, 1 Kashtira Shangri-Ira, 1 Divine Arsenal, AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder, and then 1 Asa the Earth Charmer Immovable. There's our list. Let's see some gameplay. Alright, the first game that we are going to see here is going to be against Labyrinth. So, it's funny, I didn't actually encounter Labyrinth that much during my climb up to Master. But once I got to Master 1, I actually started to see it, I feel like, a little bit more frequently. So, going second against Lab isn't exactly where you want to be, but having Ash Blossom against Lab is where you want to be. So, opponent's going to lead by activating Extravagance, and you'll notice I let it through, even though I have the Ash Blossom in my hand. And the reason that I let it through is pretty much for this exact matchup, but honestly, if you think about it, every deck that's running Extrav right now has a better Ash Blossom target. That wasn't always the case, but I think in this current meta, it definitely is. So I think we always let Extravagance resolve if we have an Ash Blossom. Same with the Ariana, I'm just looking to hit the big Welcome Trap cards. In fact, when you're playing Lab, I think that's just about the only thing you should be looking to hit. Wow, Lab's got a 53.7% win rate. Well, at least Dragleer does. That probably speaks to Lab overall. That's pretty impressive, so... Alright, going to start, of course, by specialing the Kashtira Fenrir. Going to use it to add the Unicorn. I typically add the Unicorn and not the second Fenrir, because the ability to, I think, add and then activate the Birth potentially as a follow-up is nice. Going to, of course, use the Ash Blossom on the big Welcome Lab. Again, we are very glad that we held it for that and didn't use it earlier. So, going to summon the Amin. Because I don't have another Punk monster in hand for my Sharakusai to fuse with, I'm going to have to fuse with Amin. So, no Baron here. We're playing things a little bit more risky as a result, but I think ultimately we're still going to end up being fine here. So, field spell's coming down. I actually should have activated that field spell way sooner. I think I missed out on 2 draws, so I definitely misplayed pretty hard, but, you know, it happens. It's not that big of a deal. Opponent's going to nib us and give us a huge token as a result. This will actually still trigger the Deer Note, though. So we're going to use Deer Note to summon Madam Spider and try to activate the effect. Opponent's going to impermit. That's completely fine with me. We just missed out on the Dangerous Gabu here, but I'm not really concerned about that at all. I was really just more looking to draw a card, which we do manage to do here. Gonna then use the triple tack to actually draw 2 cards here. In this current situation, I think that's better, because if I'd gotten like an E-Tail, I could have had potentially more plays. But here, I can actually still special the Amin for my hand. And then, this is actually what I was talking about earlier when I said that, oh, sometimes you do run a Fortune Tune into a defense mode monster, and Zeus would be fine. So, or downward before the Zeus would be fine. So, that's the case here, but it's fine. I'll just throw out the Zeus now and pass to my opponent. So, I'm in a really good spot here. I can Zeus and just blow up all their back row that they set during the end phase. And I'm actually trying not to Zeus if at all possible, because then I can keep this huge Nibiru token. When my opponent normal summoned the Droll, I actually did consider board wiping, because I was like, oh, maybe they'll link into like Donner Dagger for hire. But I was like, you know, if they have it, they have it. And, you know, in the worst case scenario, I lose my Zeus, but I think I'd rather wait and see if they have it than prematurely board wipe before they get to set their back row. And the fact that my opponent conceded kind of shows that I think they really didn't have anything else planned except for setting cards. And again, I just Zeus during the end phase before they can activate anything, and then we're all good from there. We get to just board wipe, and they don't get to come back at all. So there is our first game. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So this next game, if I can talk, is going to be good. I can't talk, apparently. Let's start that over. This next game, it's going to be against Dragon Link. So even though we're in Master 1, I actually did encounter still a relatively surprising amount of like tiered or meta decks, right? Of course, in Master 1, you would expect to see meta decks, but often when people hit top rank, they tend to use more casual fun stuff, but it's definitely fine for me if people want to use more meta decks, because I definitely prefer to test against those, so I'm totally fine with this. Doing pretty typical punk stuff. I could have maybe saved one of the punk monsters and potentially not had to fuse with Amin. It's always a little risky going for the Rising Carp there, because an Ash Blossom will definitely stop the combo line. It's one of the reasons why I like triple attack a lot in Punk, because that way, even if your combo line gets stopped by the Ash Blossom there, you can use triple attack to rip a card from your opponent's hand, or if it's like, depending on the situation, maybe occasionally draw two, but turn 1 I think you should pretty much always be hand ripping with the triple attack. Opponent is going to Ball Drake the Ogre, that's fine, we're not doing anything with it. I'm bringing back the Sharakusai here. Jam Dragon Drive is going to summon the Ghost Ogre, going to end up drawing an E-Telly. So here I actually misclicked on this triple tactics talent. You might be thinking, Hex, didn't you just say you should always hand rip on turn 1? And you should, and that's exactly what I meant to do. But again, unfortunately, due to a misclick, I ended up taking control of the Ball Drake, which is not the worst thing to happen in the world, right? There are a lot of decks where it's really, really good to rip this material, but now I kind of have to awkwardly use this E-Telly and then link off the Ball Drake with the Amin in order to summon an Asa, which is not terrible, because if this Asa gets destroyed, you know, then I get to at least get a Surge. And, you know, on top of that, we do also get the attack boost on the Jam Dragon Drive, and that's actually going to be enough for the opponent to concede, funnily enough. Was definitely not expecting that. This game actually happened on stream, I'm remembering it now. This was a game that happened while I was waiting for people to enter the duel room, because we were doing viewer duels. Again, we do viewer duels a lot, actually, so if you're definitely looking to throw down, definitely check out the stream there. But yeah, the opponent kind of instant conceded, which is, I think, a symptom of being in Master 1, but to be fair, we had a lot of disruption, right? We had the Ghost Ogre, which actually would have been really good against Dragon Link's field spells. We have the Ash Blossom for their searches. We have the Imperm for their on-board effects. So we were definitely in a good spot. And that's, of course, not even counting the, of course, amazing Dragon bounces. But that's going to do it for that duel. Let's check out another one here. All right, for this game, we find ourselves squaring off against Kashtira. It's definitely like a full, like they're playing Dimensional Fissures and the Side Beast and everything. It is the purest of Kashtira decks that is currently able to be played in Master Duels. So we're going to be taking the first turn here. Going to start by special summoning our Kashtira Fenrir, activating the effect to add Unicorn. Again, I like adding the Unicorn because it allows for potential follow-up by specialing it and then adding the Birth there. So normally Amin and then adding the Foxy to an opponent's going to throw out a Dimension Shifter at this point. I'm going to go ahead and triple tactics talent in response. So a couple of things are at play here, right, with this sequence of events. The Dimension Shifter definitely presents an awkward spot for me as the Punk player, as I do need my graveyard in order to make my plays. And also, I think Foxy Tune... Yeah, so Foxy Tune can't even activate under Dimension Shifter because it has to send itself from the hand to the graveyard, and you're not able to do that. So sending from hand to graveyard and discarding are different. It's why you can use Ash Blossom under Dimension Shifter, but not Maxx. Maxx, as the condition, in order to be able to activate it, you have to send it from your hand to the graveyard, which is not possible under Dimension Shifter. So you cannot activate Maxx under Dimension Shifter. Ash Blossom, you can, because Ash Blossom just says discard. Discard doesn't care where the card ultimately ends up, whether it's the graveyard or the banish, as long as you're just getting it, you know, basically just tossing it out of your hand, right? So, Foxy Tune has the same condition as Maxx, where we have to send it to the graveyard, so we cannot use it during this turn. But that's actually fine, relatively speaking, because we can triple attack our opponent here, and we look at their hand, it's definitely not that great. So, when you're hand ripping with triple attack, right, I kind of like to work backwards when figuring out what card to take. So I like to figure out first what is not good to take. I definitely don't want to take one of the side beasts because my opponent has 2 copies, and you know this card just only activates when it's normal summoned anyway. So we can already eliminate these as cards to take. Looking at Kashtira Birth, our opponent might have the ability to extend with it depending on what they top deck, but I think that ultimately the scarier effect is the ability to, well, I talked about extending, yeah, by bringing stuff back from the graveyard. They don't currently have a Kashtira monster, so this Arise Heart currently doesn't do anything. So I think Birth, yeah, is ultimately what we're going to end up taking here. And not only do we have to not only does our opponent have to rely on top decking a Kashtira monster, but now they also have to play through an Omni Negate, as well as the Ash Blossom in our hand too. So I think ultimately we're in a really good spot here. Opponent did end up top decking a cash monster. They got the Unicorn there. So they're going to special the Arise Heart and then normal the Side Beast. I have the Ash Blossom to maybe stop some of this. Like, I could have stopped the Arise Heart, but I ultimately decided to just let it resolve. Opponent's going to drop a Big Eye as their rank 7. Because here's what I was thinking, right? I was like, okay, they can make a rank 7, but what can really threat a Baronne here, right? Like, the Shangri-La does not do anything by itself. The Diablosis really doesn't do anything by itself. If either try to activate, I can just pop it with the Baronne, or the Shangri-La I can just negate with the Ash Blossom if I need to. Big Eye, again, which is what my opponent ended up making, doesn't do anything here, because I can just use the Baronne effect to negate and destroy it, so that's not a problem. And yeah, I just really couldn't think of any rank 7s that were a huge threat, so I'm like, this is fine. I don't really feel the need to, like, Ash Blossom the Arise Heart. Opponent's going to use Unicorn to rip my Chengying for some reason. That's completely fine. I don't need it at all. They're going to try to search Birth, but I'm just going to go ahead and negate that. And yeah, they're going to concede. And I know that the last card in their hand is just a Side Beast. So we're in a really good spot on our next turn. We're no longer under Dimension Shifter, so we can use Foxy Tune to do a full combo. Before we even start the full combo, we can use the Baronne to just pop the Unicorn. Not have to worry about the extra deck banish, and then we're just good. I will say this: the Unicorn taking the the Chengying was definitely, I think, indicative of me having 2 Rise Carp and 2 Amazing Dragon, right? If we only had the 1 Rise Carp, that would have been a really easy rip for my opponent, and it would have made it harder for me to combo off as a result. So, yeah, while in the current metagame, pre-second wave of support, right, I don't think it's worth it to play around cash in this regard. This does, I think, highlight the importance of having multiple Rising Carps in the near future. So we have one more game to check out. Let's go straight into it here. And our last opponent is going to be on Purrely, of course. Pretty Purrely. They are playing the Dark World tech. I think they have 2 Brow and 3 Snow. I'm still not that big of a fan of Dark Worlds. I still haven't tried them, but I don't really feel the need to try them, right? Because I don't know. I think it just kind of messes. I don't know if it messes up your consistency, but I think it does. I don't know. It seems kind of mid to me, right? Like, it seems mid to play Brow specifically to discard to draw a card, especially because, you know, you often need to discard a spell or a trap card on turn 1 with your Purrely quick play spell card just to ensure that you're able to be able to, what is it? Words brain. To ensure that you're able to actually, you know, go into a Noir with your plump. So here we see just how devastating the Ash Blossom on the Rising Carp is. They only have the 1 Purrely card in hand, so I'm going to use triple attack to rip it and then set both the Gabu and Impermanence. I don't know, we should be good here, honestly. And yeah, it's sure enough, my opponent's just going to, you know, not concede, jeez. They're just going to pass right back to me. Unfortunately, with only the Ash Blossom and Foxy Tune, like, I know they have another Ash Blossom in hand, so I can't just activate Foxy Tune here. And if it had been any other card, I might have activated the Foxy Tune just to get it out of my hand, right? But But Ash Blossom I think is important enough that I wanted to keep it. So I knew they had Red Reboot. That definitely makes my Gabu and Imperm really awkward, but I definitely need to force them to use it at some point anyway. So I actually probably should have just chained Ash Blossom against the Purrely here, but we can just use it, yeah, we can just use it on my friend Purrely as well, which I think it was my plan. To be fair, the Brow is going to get them an extra draw here, which won't matter. Purrely is going to start by actually going into the Purrely Beauty here before anything else. And yeah, opponent's just going to battle phase, because that's the other thing too, right? They can't OTK and get be on an empty board, so this also explains why they haven't activated my friend yet. This is pretty smart of them. They're actually going to go for a Zeus and use that to board wipe, because I'm under Red Reboot, and then they're going to play my friend Purrely. So definitely well played on my opponent's part for sure. Alright, here's the my friend. They're going to activate. I'm going to chain the Ash Blossom, but unfortunately, I am not in any better of a spot because, again, I know that they have an Ash Blossom in hand, which means this Foxy tune that's in my hand is not going to be enough to make plays. Going to have to hope to draw something else. Unfortunately, Crossout Designator is not going to be it. So I will try to activate the Foxy tune anyway, but it seems my opponent is just going to use a Valor that they drew instead of the Ash Blossom that we know that they have. So yeah, rip us. We were never going to be able to combo here, honestly, anyway. And I'm going to throw this last turn just in fast forward here as my opponent just makes their plays. I think they do actually end up being able to OTK on this turn. I'm trying to remember if they make the, what is it called? What's that card called? The Beauty, that we just saw it. The Purrely Beauty. I think they might end up actually making it before the Happiness? No, guess not, but... Oh, that's right, because I put Amin in this zone, they can actually make Anima, and then they can swing for exactly 5,600 for lethal. I thought that was funny. It's one of the reasons I wanted to keep this game, so... Damn. GG's, though. You know, if they had not had the Ash Blossom, I guess they had the Valor, too, but if they hadn't had the Ash Blossom that we saw in the triple tech, we could have maybe tried stuff with Foxy Tune sooner, but, you know, it happens, so... yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. Thanks, everybody, so much for watching. Let's move now to our outro. Alright everybody, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching it all the way to the very end. That means a whole lot to me, and it's also a fantastic way to support the channel. And if you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways besides YouTube, there are plenty of ways to do that. If you check out the description below, you'll find a bunch of links down there. One of them goes to my Patreon. You're actually seeing the names of everyone subscribed to the Patreon on the screen right now. So if you're interested in getting your name in the credits here at the end, if you want to see more daily Master Duel content, or if you're interested in one-on-one private coaching sessions, I offer all of that on Patreon. I also stream live on Twitch. Feel free to go ahead and click that link and follow and or subscribe there. I also have the Discord community, if you want to follow that link, where hundreds of duelists have already signed up. Free to join, and you can just come hang out, talk about the game, and chill in general. Final link that's going to be in the description is my Twitter. You can follow that if you want some more notifications of what's happening with the channel. So, all in all, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.